Hello and welcome to CATSweek. I'm Annalise Poorman. During their February 28th meeting, the Bloomington City Council heard a resolution to amend an interlocal agreement between the city and the county for the operation of the Monroe County Convention Center as a capital improvement board. City Clerk Nicole Bolden provided an overview of the resolution.
This resolution amends Resolution 2322 to reconcile two versions of an interlocal cooperation agreement between the city and the county for mutual and collaborative support of an expanded convention center, related amenities, and necessary related entities, including the Capital Improvement Board and Convention and Visitors Commission, managing the expansion project and convention center operations. This resolution adopts the version of the agreement approved by Monroe County in February 2024.
Corporation Counsel Margie Rice expanded on the agreement, detailing some background on the initiative.
Early this year, the county attorney came, gave me a call, and we started talking, and he and Stephen Lucas and I had some nice conversations, had lunch, reviewed these interlocal agreements, or this interlocal agreement, and made a few changes to it. The most significant change took out language that provided for the city to make recommendations to the CVC, which is a board created by statute. It's already a pretty tightly written statute, and it requires hoteliers to be on the board, and it's pretty hard for the county to find the right people to comprise that board. So it's not that you guys can't informally make recommendations, but we all felt like taking that requirement out, that the city council made recommendations which may or may not be adopted by the county, would make sense. It also was a stumbling block, I think, for the county council, or at least some county council members. And so taking that out, there was a similar provision that said that this interlocal requires that you guys to create a building corp, or the city to create a building corp to issue the debt for a convention center. And there was a restriction in that, and said that that the CIB members, which is the Capital Improvement Board created by a county ordinance, that the CIB members would be the members of the building corp. And I felt like that was inappropriate. You guys should be able to put the members on the building corp that you want, so that language was stricken. We feel like this is a fair interlocal. I would encourage you to approve it. Once you approve it, it will go to the mayor for signature, and then it's complete because it's been approved by the county.
During public comment, Executive Director for Visit Bloomington, Mike McAfee, spoke in support of the legislation, saying it would promote tourism and economic development for the city.
Approximately 2.5 million visitors came to Bloomington in 2023, 70% for leisure and 15% each for sports and business travel. Bloomington is a highly desirable meeting destination in the Midwest because of Indiana University and the connection to our walkable downtown, with all the restaurants, nightlife, shops, and attractions that help create experiences that can only be found here. Meeting groups want the atmosphere created by our university culture and the super cool community personality, and they love to spend money at those business establishments. This expansion, along with a new host hotel, will provide us with an opportunity to host groups of 300 to 500 people midweek when we have room to grow visitor business. With the beauty of all that being that they go home on the weekend when our hotels, restaurants, shops, and all those hospitality businesses are at their busiest. Hotels are 80% full on weekends, but 60% full midweek. This is an opportunity to create responsible, impactful travel growth when we need it most. In 2022, visitors spent $471 million in Monroe County, $155 million on food, $111 million on shopping, $81 million on lodging, and $30 million on entertainment. $42 million was spent locally in our area on the goods and supplies supporting that tourism economy. 500 new midweek business travelers will give a much-needed economic bump to those businesses as their costs of doing business continue to rise. But it's much more than that. along with IU and the organizations that bring business travelers to town, such as Cook Medical and The Mill. The convention center serves as a greeting card for our region. Often, it makes the first impression on a potential investor or talented workforce coming to our community that could invest or relocate here. We all know getting graduating students to stay here and recruiting talented workforce and families to move here is a challenging goal. The convention center is one of the necessary tools we need to do that. The business and all the experiences happening inside the convention center are important, but the connections sparked there that come to fruition outside the convention center walls are just as important for the future of our community. Please support the center local agreement, and let's make this happen once and for all.
Executive Director of the Monroe Convention Center, Talisha Kopic, said she believes the resolution would benefit the interests of the convention center and the greater community. Then City Council member Kate Rosenbarger offered a dissenting perspective on the resolution, questioning how relevant expanding the convention center would be.
I don't know if Indiana code allows for the private sector to build or maintain large meeting spaces over 200 people in our downtown area. So I don't know the answer to that. And so people have talked about not having any, but does code even allow it at this point in time, for anyone other than the city to build something like this? I think also there's demand for it. The private market would build it. I also think if we're talking about economic development in our downtown, so we want more people eating, drinking, shopping there, we have these blocks with these parking lots and vacant spaces that could instead be housing, which is something our community so desperately needs. And this would be walking, transit-oriented housing that wouldn't just spur economic development 50% of the time, it would do it 100% of the time. So instead of trying to get people here on a short-term basis for a day or two, I think looking at getting more people into downtown permanently is a really good solution for small businesses to be able to stay open and make more money. So another thing is just that there's been a lot of data over the decades on convention centers. I'm sorry, I'm just going to keep going about this. I guess I don't have to apologize. But convention center information nationally, there's a book, Convention Center Follies, and there are many articles out there about this. But the United States has seen a dramatic increase in convention center space in recent years. From 1989 to 2011, the amount of square footage devoted to convention space increased from 36.4 to 70.5 million square feet, an increase of 94%. The GAO calls the nation's supply of convention space, quote, abundant, while another expert says flatly, quote, there are too many convention centers, end quote. Meanwhile, demand for such spaces is largely flat, a phenomenon that exists independent of paradigm changes such as COVID-19 or 9/11. More than half of facilities nationwide report flat or falling attendance over the past decade, while the growth of convention center revenue has fallen 79% from Q1 2011 to Q2 2021. So this is then just to spark some conversation, obviously not here at this council meeting because we don't tend to do that, but just in general.
The council voted 7-1 in support of the resolution, with Rosenbarger dissenting. At the Monroe County Commissioners meeting on February 28th, Parks and Recreation Director Kelly Whitmer asked the commissioners to approve a contract with Bluestone LLC for tree remediation and removal. Whitmer added that the Parks Department pays special attention to whether or not there are bats roosting in the trees whenever they have to take one down.
Yes, this is with Bluestone. It is not to exceed $30,000. The agreement expires July 1st, 2025. And the reason why we need to use Bluestone is that if we have very large trees or a storm comes by, they have the equipment and the personnel that can help us get these trees down safely, especially on a greenway and things like that. But I also want to note that the no felling of trees greater than 5 inches at DBH, which is 4.5 feet tall, while Indiana bats may be present from April 1st to September 30th, which means the public, if these are guidelines, they can fell trees from October 1st through March 31st. And the reason why is that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife has reclassified the northern long-eared bat as endangered, which means it now faces extinction. And people go, well, why should I care? Well, bats are critical to the healthy functioning of natural areas and contribute at least $3 billion annually to the U.S. agriculture economy through pest control and pollination. So we need to protect our bats as much as possible, and with this contract, I always like to bring, the public so they can notice what's going on with the bats in Indiana.
Commissioner Penny Giffens commented that the bat population is also helpful in keeping the mosquito population down. The commissioners approved the contract unanimously. Later in the meeting, Planning Department Associate Planner Sean Smith asked the commissioners to approve a petition request regarding the Whaley PUD Outline Plan Amendment.
This request is for a planned unit development outline plan amendment, and this is for the Whaley PUD, and this is to allow for the filling of all sinkholes on the western portion of the property for the after-the-fact filling of 2 sinkhole conservancy areas, also commonly known as SEAs, and to add 1 new use to the permitted use list, which is boat and RV storage. The purpose of this request is to bring the property into compliance with the Whaley PUD ordinance and to resolve enforcement case AC-22-21. Without amending the PUO, the site will remain in violation of the Whaley PUD ordinance.
Commissioner Julie Thomas shared her concerns about the impact the petitioner's business could have on the watershed and explained how the property's sinkholes drain into the watershed.
I had the same concerns as my colleagues about the leaking of fluids from boats and RVs. It could be antifreeze, it could be oil, it could be gas, it could be so many things. And now if you want to add in semi-trailers, I feel like that's another level of something else that can leak, something else that can go wrong. Ms. Thetonia will work with this group, whatever we approve or don't approve, will work with this company, Mr. Klein, to ensure that there's a plan in place to manage all of this. My concern is that we don't have semi-trailer storage included in this outline plan amendment.
Smith said that the approval is contingent upon the MS4 coordinator's findings on the hydrology of the site.
That's why our staff recommendations are subject to the MS4 coordinator's reports, so Kelsey Thetonia. So nothing would be approved to be stored there if she wasn't okay with it being stored, or if the petitioner didn't, make the necessary adjustments to ensure that nothing else is being disturbed. There's no runoff into, the sinkholes, and then it gets transported downstream into Leonard Springs. So, if they submitted a development plan, we wouldn't approve anything without Kelsey's final approval.
The commissioners voted against the rezone request unanimously. The Monroe County Council met on February 27th. During department updates, Parks and Recreation Director Kelly Whitmer gave the council an update on their solar eclipse preparations.
In consultation with the Park Board, we have decided all county parks, which most people know as Cars Farm Park, Flatwoods Park, Will Detmer Park, Cars Farm Greenway, Limestone Greenway, will be open and free to the public during the solar eclipse on Monday, April 8th. All restrooms will be open that we have, fully stocked, playgrounds ready to go. You cannot reserve a shelter. We ask that the public share the picnic tables, share the shelters. We'll have park staff on site to assist anyone that may need them. I'm encouraging the public, for their own safety, maybe if they stay home and just kind of walk outside and enjoy the eclipse that way. Because if you do go to Cars Farm Park, you might get caught in a 10-hour traffic jam. There is no athletics at Cars Farm Park on April 8th. There is no recreational programs on April 8th due to the fact of the traffic, and we cannot be assured of ambulances can make it to our parks. So we think the best thing is to just canceled, but the out-of-town folk are more than welcome to come and enjoy our parks. They're very large and very open. They can even go on probably the athletic fields if it hasn't rained the night before with their chairs and whatnot. We're encouraging everyone to go to Indiana University Memorial Stadium. They're having a very large event. They're selling tickets. They're having William Shatner, Jay Mason, the astronaut, and musical performance. And if you do go there, I would suspect it would be maybe a 15-hour endeavor. So pack everything you might need. They will have food trucks. So is there any questions about what we're doing?
Next, the county commissioners spoke to the council on their preferences for the new jail. First, Commissioner Lee Jones spoke on the cost of waiting to begin construction.
There are numerous problems with the Thompson property, especially if we want to co-locate the courts and the other parts of the justice system with the jail. First, we must remove a mound of soil and debris, which is 53 feet high and occupies 6 acres. Second, Duke Energy will have to move a portion of their high voltage power line, which crosses the property. Together, these 2 items will cost several $millions and will delay beginning the project by at least 2 years. Duke would be a minimum of 2 years, and then and with a minimum cost of $1 million. We've all heard that time is money. That is an adage that has real meaning here. We will continue to patch together the current facility as best as we can, but that can become extremely expensive. And if we need a new elevator, which it appears we might, that could be up to $500,000. Waiting 2 years or more to begin the construction of the Justice Complex could increase the cost by up to 3 to 4% or even more annually.
Commissioner Julie Thomas said that after community listening sessions, they've decided to look at a new location for the future jail and emphasize the importance of making a decision sooner rather than later.
Most important, we want to point out that there is a human cost to delaying a project that cannot be ignored. We will continue to have to rely on our current jail facility in the interim, a jail which has been deemed unconstitutional, which lacks sufficient space for programming we all want. And this impacts our inmates, it impacts our staff, and it impacts the Sheriff's Department as well. We had 2 really vibrant listening sessions with residents who live in the vicinity of the Thompson property, and they spoke in opposition to the proposed Justice Complex, especially noting issues relating to traffic. We want to thank them for their time and also for the insight that they provided to us. So we have the human cost, we have the financial cost, we have the costs related to time, and we have heard from residents. So we'd like to shift our focus to an in-depth investigation of the next location on the list, which is North Park. If we can acquire property in North Park that is suitable for the Justice Complex, we can move forward relatively quickly. The site we are interested in has much better access for relating to traffic, and so it's much better than the Rogers area. And utilities will not need to be rerouted, so that's also a benefit. State law requires us to have a jail. We don't have a choice. As good stewards of Monroe County resources and in people who care about those who are incarcerated, those who work in the Justice Complex, and those who live in our community, we need to move with expediency. So we look forward to working with you on this. This is a huge project, and we've collaborated very well, and we want to continue that forward motion, but turn our sights to another site.
Next, the council heard reports from the Sheriff's Department. Jail Commander Kyle Gibbons shared the latest inmate statistics.
Currently, we have 211 inmates. Our secure bed count is 191. In the last 48 hours, we have booked in 11 people. In the last 48 hours, we have released 26. We have 172 felony inmates, 29 misdemeanor. We have 6 DOC hold and 2 out-of-county hold. Our most recent bookings at the facility are trespass, intimidation and threats, possession of methamphetamine, and probation violation.
Chief Deputy Phil Parker gave the council a few examples of why they need a new facility rather than updating the current jail.
One of the things that I want to focus on are things that happen in that facility that keep pointing us to the need to move forward with this new facility. So there are things that happen in there that we hear, can you just fix it? Can you just fix it? So one of these things here, this is kind of gross. I'm just warning you up front. So we had some shower drains that were clogged up, and we began the process of clearing those today. And in those 2 shower drains, we removed 2 pounds of hair that had accumulated in those shower drains. And you think, how is that possible? Well, there's a couple reasons. Well, those are cast iron drains. And as time has aged them, it's roughed them up on the inside, so the stuff catches. And there's no way for that stuff to smoothly flow down that drain line. And the other issue is those are poured in concrete. So to repair those, to change them out, you have to bust up the concrete to get to them. In the last 6 months, we have had 2 failures of the 8-inch main sewer line. One of those cut loose and dumped a fair amount of sewage in one of the administrative offices in the sheriff's side. It was going out that way. So all these things, I just tell you that this is the state of the building that we continue to fight almost every single day.
Parker also shared updates on their preparations for the solar eclipse.
It's a little different for us than it is your normal agency, but what I wanted to bring to you in all seriousness, that as we plan through this, and we've had numerous planning meetings about the eclipse, this is just a information only that as we approach this, there's going to be a lot of radio traffic through the emergency services through this. So part of our planning is that we're going to have to rent about 50 different UF radios so that if our primary communication system goes down, that we have a backup system. And we're into that detail of planning. So obviously, we'll look at our equipment and budgets for that. I just want to let you know that will be another expense that's coming out of this eclipse. I talked to you all about the overtime, just so you'll know that the expenses for the eclipse are mounting on our sheriff's office, pretty routinely and pretty quickly. So I don't want you to have any surprises, if we have to come talk to you later on about these expenses. And then last but not least, we're going to try to get on y'all's agenda here for your next council meeting to talk about the transition team for the new jail build and how we're going to move on that. So I want to let you know that you can be looking forward to that conversation, hopefully at our next council meeting.
The next Monroe County Council meeting will be held on March 12th. At the February 27th Bloomington Board of Public Works meeting, several members of the community came out in support of installing a marker to honor Bloomington's first black firefighter, James Snooky Hopkins. Elizabeth Mitchell, historian of African American culture and experience here in Monroe County, asked that the marker be placed at 102 South Rogers Street, which was the original site of the fire station number 2. In her request, Mitchell cited Hopkins' dedication to the community despite its constant resistance towards him.
Firefighters face danger while depending on their coworkers to protect them from harm. Only the brave accept those risks. Mr. Hopkins faced inherent dangers while knowing that those on whom he depended on didn't want him there. Many white firefighters at that time would not speak with him, nor would they eat with him or sleep in a bed he had slept in. And he received death threats from the public. His wife received threatening phone calls that their house would be burned down. He was treated like this not for 1 year, not for 2 years, but for 3 years. In the face of such persecution, Mr. Hopkins persisted despite being faced with a hostile environment intended to drive him away.
After working at the Bloomington Fire Department for 20 years, Hopkins was promoted to captain at Fire Station No. 2 in 1985. Mitchell said that over his 27-year career, Hopkins gained acceptance from his white colleagues, leading him to be a pioneer in the integration of the workforce. Fire Chief Roger Kerr also spoke at the meeting, stating that the fire department is in full support of the marker. Retired firefighter Lee Chapman spoke in favor of the marker.
I'm in here for support of it as far as a bunch of other retired firemen who support this. You know, we look at Snook as the first African American hired by the city, but I look at this man as more than that. I mean, this guy, the odds were stacked up against him, and most people would have walked away. But this was a man. This was a man that didn't walk away, and this was a man that had a fantastic 27 years at the Bloomington Fire Department, and he did it with honor as a captain. I didn't work directly underneath him, but any time I was around him, he had a smile on his face, and he always had good words for me, and he was a leader, and he deserves this.
Board member Kyla Cox-Deckard stated that she's been working closely with the mayor's office to push this process forward and thanked everyone who came out to support Hopkins. The Ellettsville Town Council met on February 26 and discussed amendments to the sick leave policy for firefighters and overtime policy for police officers. The council approved changing the firefighters' sick leave policy from earning 1 sick day every 2.4 months to gaining 10 hours of sick leave every month. According to Fire Chief Kevin Patton, the amendment will not change the firefighters' amount of sick leave, but it will just make it easier to track.
Basically, making bookkeeping a little easier. We're not increasing sick time for the firefighters. It's just currently firefighters earn 24-hour shift or 1 day every 2.4 months for a total of 5 shifts for the year. We're just changing it so they get 10 hours per month. It's easier for the clerk's office and for us to keep track of it, but at the end of the year, they're still just going to get 5.
The amendment was passed unanimously. Next, the council discussed an amendment to clarify the police department overtime policy. The proposal was immediately met with questions. In response, Detective Lieutenant Zachary Mitchell said that talks about the policy are still ongoing.
We met about this last week, and I think that section's kind of redundant. That played into the whole 28-day cycle before, so we were actually discussing about possibly striking that entirely. So we were going to work on this and bring something back to you, but.
And I would suggest that we potentially work on some wording for some of the off-duty things that are worked, because again, the hours aren't necessarily adding up. Where if you take a day off, but you're going to work something outside that the department authorizes, but you're only getting straight time for that, but we're charging that entity the overtime rate. If that makes sense.
Councilmember William Ellis moved to table the amendment until a later date. The motion to table was passed unanimously. And that is all for Cats Week. Thank you for joining us. For Cats and WFHB, I'm Annalise Poorman.